Good afternoon and welcome to Day 4 of CHCI's 2020 Leadership Conference. Thank you for joining us for the session titled Smart Cities, Building an Inclusive and Accessible Urban Future. My name is Stefania Inachkov and I'm the Vice President of External Affairs at CHCI. I've been with the Institute for 4.5 years. On behalf of CHCI, I would like to thank General Motors, American Property Casualty Insurance Association, the National Association of Realtors, Charter Communications, and Edison Electric Institute for their generous support of this session. Before we begin our panel, I would like to introduce our panel host, Congressman Gil Cedillos, and our moderator, Amanda Daphlos. Gil Cedillos represents California's 39th Congressional District, which includes portions of Orange County, Los Angeles, as well as San Bernardino counties. Congressman Cedillos served as a Supply Corps officer in the United States Navy. He has been awarded the Navy Commendation Medal, the Navy Achievement Medal, and the National Defense Medal, as well as the Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal. Congressman Cedillos currently serves on the House Armed Services Committee, as well as the House Veterans Affairs Committee. We will also hear from Nate Johnson from the National Association of Realtors. The National Association of Realtors works to empower realtors as they preserve, protect, and advance the right to real property for all. This panel will bring together a local government official as well as private company executives who are leading this new fourth industrial revolution. To help us moderate this important and timely discussion, we're delighted to have Ms. Amanda Daphlos, an expert on government innovation who serves as the Chief Innovation Officer of the City of Los Angeles. Amanda was appointed by Mayor Eric Garcetti in 2015 to become the first innovation officer in the city of Los Angeles, which is the second largest city in the United States. She is an accountant and a leader in the nonprofit industry and is considered a pioneer on the government innovation and transformation landscape. I hope you enjoyed today's session, and please don't forget to continue the conversation on social media by using the hashtag CHCIHHM20.
Hello, everyone. I'm Congressman Gil Cedillos. I represent California's 39th District, which includes parts of Los Angeles, Orange, and San Bernardino counties. I hope you've been enjoying the CHCI conference, and happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you all for inviting me to speak at this Smart Cities, Building an Inclusive and Accessible Urban Future session. This health crisis has revealed a lot about how our country operates, and it's forced a lot of us to do our day-to-day activities online, virtually with the internet. With rapid urbanization and a focus on investing in technology, it's more important now than ever that we bridge these gaps. As a member of the Congressional New Dem Infrastructure Task Force and the New Dem Future of Work Task Force, we've been pushing on the urgent need for America to modernize its infrastructure to address deficiencies and build for the 21st century. We need more broadband access. Internet is essential and it's needed in every home. With so many schools having to transition to online learning, it's exposed how many of our families don't have access to affordable, reliable internet. We need to bridge this digital divide. Part of building smart cities is rebuilding and investing in our infrastructure. It's long overdue and has overwhelming bipartisan support. It's why the House passed H.R. 2, the Moving Forward Act, which makes significant investment in rebuilding our infrastructure from highways and transit, roads and bridges, healthcare, schools, public utilities, energy, and broadband access. It also takes huge steps to combat climate change. Our government and business sectors must work together to bring us to the next level, solve the challenges we're seeing today, and make the crucial investment needed for the future. I hope you all have a great session and get good ideas how to help build our smart cities. Please stay safe, take care, and talk to you later. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Daphlos, and I am the Chief Innovation Officer for the City of Los Angeles. I'm super delighted to be here with all of you today, wherever you are. First, thanks to Congressman Gil Cedillos for his opening remarks and for setting a great tone for the conversation that we're about to have here today. And a very warm and big thank you to CHCI for hosting this powerful leadership conference and deciding really to focus their attention on the important topic of smart cities. Today, we're going to talk about the power of smart cities and the many different ways that this idea is being integrated into the fabric of our lives across the world. Sometimes in really great ways that you see every day, and in other times ways that are just below the fabric. Some studies show that 68% of the world's population is going to live in metropolitan areas by 2050. As these shifts happen, city officials like me and many of you on the line have the opportunity to really make life better and more livable for residents in these urban areas. Today, along with me to discuss this important topic, I'm delighted to be joined by three subject matter experts. I'm going to take a moment to welcome each of them, and then you'll have the opportunity to hear the way that they think and the important work that their companies are doing in just a moment. So first, I'd like to welcome Richard Lopez. Richard is the Director of Federal Administration Affairs at General Motors. Richard specializes in emerging technologies, safety, and defense. He works with federal departments and agencies, Congress, and the White House on issues impacting connected and autonomous vehicles, automotive safety, cybersecurity, privacy, and defense. In addition, Mr. Lopez is General Motors' DC liaison in Hispanic outreach and community affairs. He is also the founding board member of the Hispanic Lobbyists Association. So join me in welcoming Rich Lopez. Next, I'm delighted to introduce Patricia Zullo, Senior Director for Smart City Solutions for Spectrum Enterprise. Patty is responsible for defining and executing the Spectrum Smart City go-to-market strategy and representing the company with industry groups and events to raise awareness of the Spectrum Smart City Solutions. She has over 20 years of leadership experience in the areas of IoT analytics, cloud, internet security, and mobile communications. Welcome, Patty. Really excited to have you with us today. And then finally, we're going to be joined by Kellen Schefter, who's the Director of Electronic Transportation at Edison Electric Institute, which is the Association for U.S. Investor-Owned Electric Companies. At EEI, Kellen leads cross-industry coordination to advance transportation electrification, including policy advocacy, business model development, and stakeholder engagement. Kellen previously worked on regulatory and compliance issues at plug-in electric vehicle manufacturer Fisker Automotive. Panel, welcome, and again, really excited to be with you all this morning to have this important conversation. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to get us started, and I'm actually just going to jump in because I want to hear the most from you. I'm going to jump right into some of the first questions that I wanted to ask you. And really the first area that I thought would be worth covering is just thinking about how your company thinks about smart cities. So Rich, I was hoping I could start with you, and maybe you could tell us a little bit more in your own words, certainly what you do, what General Motors is doing in this space. But it's my understanding that GM recently announced several initiatives and partnerships to advance mobility solutions for smart cities. So I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about that and discuss the goals of that program.
Yeah, absolutely, Amanda. Thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank CHCI as well for the opportunity to be able to speak today on behalf of General Motors and some of the issues and the initiatives, as you said, that we're working on. I start off with one of the big ones really is that, a couple of years back, we made a big announcement about it's our 000 initiative, which is zero crashes, zero pollution, and zero congestion as well. And so under this new initiative it's sort of the umbrella that kind of falls everything that we've been working on, which ties into all the smart cities. So within the zero crashes area, we're talking about safety, we're talking about connected vehicles, automation, all of those areas as well. In the zero pollution or zero emissions area is really what it's called. We're talking about electrification and how GM's going more towards a fully electric future and what we're building towards that area as well. And then the zero congestion is sort of a combination of a little bit of between what we're doing on autonomous and connected as well. And so really the initiative kind of sets forward what we're working on and what our future is going to be. A couple of the partnerships, doing different partnerships is nothing new to General Motors. We've been working with different companies, different organizations, cities as well. We did a small project with the city of Los Angeles a few years back as well. But it's something that we have constantly been trying to partner with different companies and partnered with different groups in order to and kind of figure out what's the best way to achieve those goals of 000. And so a couple of the latest ones really that we've been working on, well, there was Lyft, that we ended up partnering with Lyft and basically tying it in with what was our platform, which was Maven, and utilizing our Maven vehicles in order to allow Lyft drivers who were not able to have a vehicle that would qualify as a Lyft driver, that they could go pick up one of our vehicles and use it for the week at basically almost no cost, depending on how much they used it. So that kind of sets the tone of a little bit of where we were trying to go as far as smart cities, is to provide a means of employment for those that couldn't normally have that opportunity because they didn't have a car that would qualify. So that was one way that we are starting to kind of push the envelope a little bit on kind of smart cities and where we are going. The next ones were where we were going towards on electrification and kind of what we were trying to accomplish on those goals. So back in 2019, we made a big announcement with LG Chem that we were basically putting in $2.3 billion joint venture in order to build a battery assembly facility in Lordstown, Ohio, to where we could start now manufacturing a lot of the batteries in the United States instead of having to rely on China, and bringing that into the country as well. So that helped to push this initiative that we're trying to work on. The latest ones have been two announcements. One has been with Uber, where we are providing Chevy Bolts, our fully electric vehicle, which has upwards of almost a 400-mile range on each charge, and especially with our new Ultimum battery that we are working on. And so that has been a way to where we are providing those vehicles at a discounted rate to the drivers, and then also providing them accessories, charging accessories at a discounted rate. So we're pushing electrification into these, into these apps and these services. So it'll allow people to get out and really experience the electrification. And then we've also just announced recently a partnership with Honda, where we are going to be building, working with Honda, who we've already been partnering with for many years now, whether it be through autonomous vehicles or electrification, and starting to build two new electric vehicles with Honda using our platforms and their platforms and both our technologies in order to do that. And the reason why I keep talking about electrification is because our autonomous vehicle platform is going to be our Chevy Bolt. And then we just recently announced the Chevy Origin, but all of our autonomous vehicles are going to be fully electric vehicles as well. So it's kind of helping the city in a general sense of not only providing the vehicles and the means to get people into those vehicles, but have an opportunity for folks to experience it, but also pushing electrification and pushing autonomous to provide services for those that, whether it be the blind or whether it be seniors that normally don't have the possibility of getting into or getting from the means for transportation. And so these are these mobility services that we continue to talk about. So that's kind of the overall picture of what we're trying to accomplish at General Motors, and adding connectivity in there as well, which I can talk a little bit more about that later, but I want to allow others as well the opportunity to speak.
Rich, that's great. It's really exciting to hear that that's how you're helping sort of expose the public even more and more to these really dynamic solutions that GM is bringing to the table. So thanks for that. Patty, I was hoping to turn to you to really help us understand the way that Spectrum has been working in the smart city space. And I think it'd be really helpful for our audience if you could briefly highlight a city or a community where you're implementing the smart city infrastructure, and really talk about the benefits that come through to the community when you do that.
Sure. So thank you, Amanda, and thank you for CHCI for inviting Charter Communications to participate in today's panel. Spectrum Enterprise, which is a part of Charter Communications, the City of St. Petersburg, Florida, the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg, the St. Petersburg Innovation District, and US Ignite actually partnered to create a smart city proof of concept that integrates the city requirements and innovative technology. So one example of this partnership is a smart intersection. St. Petersburg influenced this initiative with goals to mitigate intersection collisions, respond to their Vision Zero initiatives, drive creative deployment of multiple IoT sensor technologies, and support the city's Connected Streets program. So Spectrum Enterprise developed a method to identify and capture, analyze every action that actually occurs inside or within the intersection, and provide that information back in real-time data on pedestrian, bike, scooter, and vehicular traffic. So the project sensors and data analytics platforms that have been used also are being transformed in this day and age for social distancing guidelines. So a great way of showing how current initiatives are helping future-proofing the city. The pilot location that we chose is on the university campus, and it's at a really unique intersection with stop signs for all three crosswalks bisecting each roadway. So one crosswalk is really offset from the intersection itself, and this has potentially created numerous pedestrian and vehicular accidents and near misses. There were so many incidents literally at this intersection. Both the city and the university were desperate for innovation. So with the pilot and all of the partners that are contributing, Spectrum has the opportunity to transform the data collection and provide it back to the city with unprecedented details from real-time information that has helped them uncover new insights and alternatives to intersection designs.
Hey, thank you for that. And so I imagine some of the outcomes of a project like that would be that you're actually saving lives, right? You're probably reducing traffic, but you may also be saving lives when it comes to just patterns and understanding how people do and don't behave at intersections. Has that been your experience in that pilot project?
Yeah, so the pilot project is still in its infancy, meaning that we haven't really achieved what the final goal is. You have mentioned what the final goal is helping the city really understand how they can manage these intersections and potentially save lives. But the data that we're providing them back to the city is really helping them understand what's happening. You can't measure or fix what you don't know what's happening today. So by providing them the data that's happening today in real time, we can help them plan for the future, and whether it be expanding the time it takes to cross, or whether it's providing digital signage or in-street lighting awareness or different type of sensor technologies to really alert people of what's happening to see if we can reduce any of those incidents or near incidents.
Patty, thanks for that. That's a great segue, I think, Helen, into the question that I had for you, which is I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit more about the role of Edison in supporting smart communities in general, but when it comes to transportation in particular.
Yeah, happy to. And thank you to Amanda for moderating here, and thanks to CHCI for having us. EI is the trade group for all investor-owned electric companies in the U.S., and our members actually serve about 220 million Americans with electricity. So when we think about smart cities or smart communities, we really think of this partnership opportunity because our companies are already there serving these communities in such a fundamental way. So whatever it is that the community is trying to achieve, whether it's improving quality of life, economic development, improving transportation, we think there's a way to leverage this electric infrastructure to support the community. So we really think of electricity and smart energy being sort of the fundamental backbone of what a smart community is and can be. And I think transportation is a really great example for how that can work. Historically, if you think about the way transportation works in a city or anywhere in the U.S., gasoline, diesel, very different infrastructure system than electric delivery, right, in the U.S., very different systems. But when we talk about electric transportation, we're actually talking about extending the electric grid to support the vehicle network, right? So it's sort of this thinking of extending the grid to help accommodate this new way of fueling vehicles. So there's lots of ways electric companies can do this. I think at a minimum, it's really thinking about planning where the city and where the market is going. Well, we want to make sure if there's bus depots electrifying, we want to make sure the grid can be there to handle it. If there's public charging infrastructure to power some of these autonomous vehicles that Rich is talking about, we want to make sure there's that infrastructure there to power that too. So at a baseline is making sure we understanding where the community is going. But I think even beyond that, there's so much our companies can do to help pay for infrastructure, help educate customers, help kind of go beyond the business as usual to help ensure that this infrastructure is built out to support this network. So we're seeing more and more of our companies kind of stepping forward into that space. I'm really excited about that opportunity, and that's kind of how we're thinking about leveraging our expertise as infrastructure providers to help cities kind of accomplish the goals that they want to, particularly around these transportation initiatives. So that's kind of where I'll stop for now, and thanks again for having it.
Kellen, thanks so much. That really helps, I think, sort of frame a little bit of the next area that I wanted to dig into a bit, which is, each of you talked about sort of the space that your companies and you are working in to lay the groundwork and actually bring some examples forward into cities like my own, like Los Angeles. And I was hoping that we could maybe move in the direction of talking about certainly some examples and ways that you all are making sort of this concept of smart cities real. If I think back 5, 7, 10 years ago, even though it was to some extent a concept or a word, but now we're actually living it, which I think is exciting. And so we go outside, we see intersections, we see the infrastructure changing, we see vehicles changing, and our lives really being influenced by this better technology and framework for cities. So Rich, I want to turn back to you for a minute and maybe hear a little bit about, particularly as we talk about mobility solutions, I wanted to just talk a bit more about connected and autonomous vehicles. And I'm hoping that you can provide the background on the development of these technologies and really help our listeners understand how that's being integrated into this smart cities concept and world that we're living in.
Yeah, absolutely, Amanda. Thank you very much. And, this is an area where it really combines everything that both Patricia and Kellen and all of us, we seem to be kind of working in unison on the same projects. And so connected vehicles is one where it's called vehicle to vehicle or vehicle to infrastructure communications. And it's more of now it's called vehicle to everything. What Patty was talking about earlier in the sense of that there are communications that can, or stoplights or intersections that can relay information to pedestrians on bicycles, on motorcycles, or just kind of walking around. That's kind of one of the things that has been a major initiative for General Motors and for the industry as a whole, that we've been working on developing these types of communications for many years now. Started off 20 years ago as just kind of a thought. And so the engineers started working on it. And so, unfortunately, much like everything else in the automotive industry, we have to really put a lot of time and effort into things, and we can't, because of safety purposes, we can't beta test our products out in the marketplace. And so we always, I joke around, my 8th grade shop teacher made us get 100 on our test before we could go use the tools. And I said, well, why do we need 100? He goes, because you can't be 99% safe, And so it was always, it fits with automotive work because we have to put something out that's 100% safe. So the development of these technologies takes time in order to get it to be right. With that said, we've been developing what's called this vehicle to everything technology, which is communications that are happening rapidly between vehicles and then also happening between infrastructure. And so there was actually an Ann Arbor pilot that had taken place a few years back that we had upwards of 3,000 vehicles that were retrofitted with this technology on a volunteer basis. And then it was so successful, they turned it into 4,000 vehicles. And so this is kind of the basis of where we are calling this connected kind of world between vehicles, pedestrians, and infrastructure, and these smart cities that we're talking about. And so there's so much of the need for everything Patricia's working on and everything Kellen's working on to fit all of this together. And so it's been something that we're excited about, and we're going to continue to be moving forward. We've even split up where one technology was a Wi-Fi based technology, and now there's a cellular based technology. And so we're even developing both at the same time because China is working off the cellular based, and we've been working off of the Wi-Fi based for a while. But anyways, all that is continues to move forward, but it's part of that ecosystem that we talk about, connected cities. And so we'll continue to move forward and develop that. And as things change and as the environment changes as well, we'll of course adapt to those changes, and we'll continue to try to do this all for the name of safety, like what you were talking to Patty about when she explained what she was working on how this is about being about safety. And that's the biggest thing for us as we always say, safety is number one. We want to make sure that everybody is safe, and when they not only get into the vehicles, but in the environments around the vehicles as well. So we're working a lot on in that area. And then the other one is also the development of autonomous vehicles has been a really big issue for General Motors. I think the investments into electrification and autonomous is reaching, I think, across the entire industry. We're hitting $100 billion, and it's just going to continue to increase because this is the wave of the future, is these two areas. And so with the development of autonomous vehicles, it's more of how do we provide the safest solution for those that don't normally have the ability to have mobility? And how do we do that in a way that we're doing it in a smart way, but we're also doing it in an environmentally sound way as well? And this is to where Kellen was talking about the build out of all these different types of infrastructure, and where we tie into that is by us putting all of our autonomous vehicles, making them fully electric vehicles as well. So that way we are adding to the environment and the community and not, adding more issues or concerns with it. And so as we continue to develop these, really, we've announced we had the Chevy Bolt as our original autonomous vehicle platform, and then now we've just announced the Origin, which I'm not sure if you've seen that, but it's a kind of a rectangular vehicle that you slide the door and you just kind of get in, and it's got kind of a what's called a campfire seating. And so it allows people to kind of get in and it can move them around in a safe manner. But that's the next one that we've been able to develop and actually launch. And so really the next big step, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later too, I'll get into it more, but it's just really allowing the development for these types of vehicles and allowing for the government to be able to say, okay, let's move forward on this. Let's do it in a smart, safe way, but let's continue to allow the development to happen. And so that's kind of where we are and what our challenges have been. And but we are committed to a safe and connected future that is also environmentally sound. And so that's where we're looking and where we want to go and where we believe the future of mobility solutions lies.
Gretch, thanks so much. I haven't seen the Origin yet, but I'm pretty excited to check it out and intrigued by the campfire seating. So thank you for that. I do want to take a moment before I have obviously a number of questions that I could go on all day with, but I want to give our audience an opportunity to ask all of our panelists some questions. So in the Q&A box to the right of your screen, you should be able to now start entering in some questions that you have. And so at the end of our conversation, or towards the end of our conversation, I'll be taking your questions and putting them to our incredible panelists. So please feel free now to start entering your questions, collecting them as you go, whether it's about the fire seating, the campfire seating, or it's about intersections or anything else that may come up. Please go ahead and start doing that now. Kellen, I'm going to come back to you for a minute, and I was hoping that you could give us some examples and talk us through some of the ways that Edison, as a trade group, is partnering with cities to support electric transportation. And you touched on that a little bit, but maybe give us some great examples that you've seen in practice.
Sure. And I think the good news is there's lots of examples. So we're in a good position there. And I think we're seeing more and more of this happen. But just a few I might point out. In Maryland, for example, Baltimore Gas and Electric was able to get permission from their regulatory commission to actually build and own and operate DC fast charging stations throughout the community, as long as they're on public property, so on a government facility or something like that. So we're seeing this as a great way where the electric company can help actually build out this infrastructure for the broader community in partnership with the public entities that want to host this infrastructure. And that can go to help, TNC drivers like on Uber or Lyft, for example. They want to adopt an EV Bolt and they want to drive that as part of their Uber or Lyft service. They can use these to charge up and know that they're there. So that's one example. Another one in Southern California, actually, not Los Angeles precisely, but Southern California Edison, which serves a lot of the whole Southern California area. Southern California Edison is actually helping to build charging infrastructure that helps support a lot of the transit agencies that are going electric with buses. And as you know, in California, there's an advanced clean transit rule that's actually requiring transit agencies to shift to zero-emission buses by 2040. So they're under a very clear mandate to have to electrify buses. And so it's nice to have the electric space to step up with their own program to say, we know you need to do this on the vehicle side. Let's help you get there with the infrastructure side. And that's a good sort of pairing there as well. Last couple examples I'll mention, not from the coast, but center of the country. Columbus, Ohio won that Smart Cities Challenge grant. They were able to leverage a lot of what AEP, our member company, did to help build charging infrastructure and support the objectives of that project. And similarly, in Kansas City, KCP&L, now known as Evergy, built out a large public charging network. And again, that kind of created, in these two examples, sort of EV adoption hotspots that you didn't really expect necessarily without strong public policy in that direction. So I think those examples, there's many more we can cover, but some good variety there of how a city objective or a state objective can be leveraged with an electric company investment to help meet a common goal.
Kellen, thanks so much. That's really helpful, I think, to hear examples from across the country and just different ways that smart cities is being integrated at the state and city level. Patty, I was hoping that you could talk to people a little bit more about Charter. I know sometimes folks think about Charter as maybe a traditional company that relies on wires to ground people to its services, but I know that you're no longer a wires-only company. So maybe you could help us understand how Charter has been able to integrate wireless technology and how you're helping cities become smart cities.
Sure. So Charter traditionally has been a very strong, robust cable company. However, we're making the transformation over the past couple of years and really are focusing more on delivering solutions that help clients achieve their ambitions. And those ambitions can be a variety of things. The client comes to us, they tell us what the initiative is, we work together as a partnership to be able to define what the best sensor, what the best use of network protocol is. So, for instance, we built a network that really enables cities to collect and analyze data regardless of the communication protocol needed by that particular technology deployed. So, for instance, while fiber is phenomenal for video data collection, water meter technologies would not need fiber. It wouldn't work well, and it would be an overkill. So water technologies are really more suited to protocols like long-range, wide area networks, or LoRaWAN. The flexibility of the network that Charter provides really frees up the cities to focus on the use cases and the initiatives that are important to them and their citizens, and not necessarily worry about the network or the protocol. They can leverage the spectrum network that's in their city to be able to deliver all of the data, all of the analytics, regardless. So, for instance, some of the smart cities, when you talk about smart cities, it's really all about data, whether it be collecting and analyzing, leveraging and visualizing the data. That's really what makes a city smart. It's collecting the data, leveraging it, analyzing it to provide insights and optimizing processes or making things more efficient in the city in real time. So the value that Charter provides by moving into this solutions-based company is providing the city a network that's totally ubiquitous, robust, regardless of the requirement, that delivers efficient and secure transport of that data back to the city in real time to allow them to actually act on those initiatives.
That's great. Patty, that's actually a perfect segue to the kind of the third area that I was hoping to go into together. And so maybe I'll start with you, which is, I wanted to maybe sort of hear more about, from Charter's perspective, how communities benefit from work like this, and how is smart cities changing lives, and how is the work of Charter really changing lives and changing an experience in a city, whether it's for government officials or for residents?
Sure. So smart cities, when I go out and talk to our client cities, I emphasize for them that smart city is really a journey. And it is not one and done. 10 years ago, as you indicated, when smart cities really first started to be a buzzword, people said, "Oh, I've installed one thing and now I'm smart." Well, what we found over the past 10 years is what you need to do is need to think forward, and you need to really understand the things that you're doing today and how those will help you in the future. For instance, nobody anticipated COVID. However, we have a lot of cities that have deployed sensors that are now formatting or changing the data that those sensors are collecting to help them with some initiatives that COVID has presented to them. So smart cities, as I indicated, is a journey, and really by partnering with a trusted advisor like Spectrum, we can bring together the strong network, our smart city expertise, and most importantly, the diverse partner ecosystem to the city. So since our services and network are typically already in the cities that we serve, the city is really comfortable knowing that we're there for them today with the pilot and afterwards. We're not going away anytime soon. And so we help the city navigate their smart city journey alongside them. Specifically, Spectrum partners with our client cities to really help them through the process of deploying these innovative technologies to help with the initiatives. So some of the steps we go through when we talk to our cities, when we're getting ready to deploy a pilot, is the first thing we ask them to do is define the problem. So while this sounds pretty simple, oftentimes the immediate issue is actually a cause from an unrelated or related issue. So for instance, if improving parking downtown is the goal, does the city really know enough about how the current parking is being utilized? So maybe the parking zones are too long or too short to accommodate whatever activity the city is really looking to drive. Some of the issues can be caused by timing of the traffic signals, directional signage, or lack of awareness where free or meter parking is available. So we work with the city to really understand and define what the problem is in order to build a plan to address it. The second thing we work with the cities on is assembling a team. One of the key findings from multiple smart cities all over the world is don't go the journey alone. Tapping internal resources, stakeholders from inside and outside, bringing in your citizens, bringing in private industry, all of that is going to help you reach what you're looking to achieve and help you define a better path forward. Third thing we go through, creating a vision. So socializing that vision with the city as well as with the community. Tell them what they're going to get out of this particular installment. So one of the things that we found in St. Petersburg, Florida, is that STEM or educational benefits are really, really, really in front of mind on a lot of our cities. And so we actually help them achieve some of those STEM and educational benefits. We have universities that are now putting in entire curriculum to support some of the instances of smart cities that are going on in their cities today to help those school-age children be able to understand more about the cities. The next step, build a plan, try to get buy-in from all stakeholders and prioritize the technology that you want to deploy as smart technology, and give yourself the time to actually show success. When we work with cities and the city says, well, we want to be able to achieve success, in the next 3 months, depending upon what technology they are trying to deploy, that may or may not happen. Smart cities is definitely a longer type of engagement. And then finally, implement the plan. Come to an agreement on the milestones and the metrics that are important to success for the success of your project. Don't think that what other cities have done that you can follow that plan. Your initiatives, your city, your citizens, and and what you want to be able to accomplish are driven by you and your city, not by what somebody else has done.
Patty, thank you for that. I think what you said is so important, that it really is a journey and we don't get there overnight. Some of these things are highly complex and really take a lot of minds and brains and infrastructure. So really appreciate how you laid that out for our audience and for us. Rich, I wanted to turn back to you. And I was really hoping you could tell us about, from a federal perspective and also from a local perspective, what government can do to really help progress the development of advanced auto technologies as we move into the future.
Yeah, absolutely, Amanda. Real quick, I was just going to put this up there. There's the campfire seating for you.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of giving you the idea of the origin. So just so you can
thank you. I'm
get an idea.
that's better than I imagined. So thank you.
It can allow for a greater dialogue about smart cities.
Absolutely, yeah. Yes, I will. Well, I'll follow up with you later.
Absolutely. Well, look, I mean, there's a lot of things that can be happening from both the federal and the local perspective. I think the most important one is for local governments as well as the federal government to basically develop policies that drive innovation, that we are not doing things that are going to stifle what is happening out there. It's really the big one that we always talk about, because so many different types of technologies are being innovated on a constant basis, that things are coming out as fast as, just one coming out every, 6 months or so, or whether it's something happening, within the next couple months. But anyways, it's to where we're allowing this to continue to happen, where the governments aren't stepping in and saying, okay, well, wait, we have to, slow things down a little bit. Let's take a look at this. We all want to do it as safe as possible, but at the same time, finding that balance between where can we do this safely, but how do we continue to allow the innovation to move forward? So that's really the big one on all levels, I would say. Mainly really on the federal level, especially when it comes to autonomous vehicles right now, is allowing some type of, structure to be put in place that will allow us to get out there and continue to test more different types of autonomous vehicles on the road, once again, in a safe manner, but at the same time, allowing all those cars to get out there. So that way we can build the data that's necessary in order to develop some type of autonomous vehicle structure. And so that's been kind of one of the big ones that we've been working on here at the federal level, is just trying to get an AV bill passed right now and get something that allows us, like I said, we are limited in the amount of testing that we are able to do on how many vehicles we can put out there. So having some type of temporary structure put in place that will allow us to get more vehicles on the road so we can gain more data. As Patricia was talking about, it's all about gaining the data so we can invest that data into what we need to do to build out these smart cities. So it's about allowing all that to take place and getting all of those. And then thirdly, I would just say, partnering with companies, some of Kellen's, members and General Motors and some of our colleagues as well, is just cities partnering with us in order to allow that, the experience and the all that technology to come in with and help in the development of these smart cities. We're not saying we've got every single answer, but we've got a lot of really smart engineers that, every time I talk to them, they tell me they have the answers. But it's just a great ability to form that partnership and continue to do that, and to keep the eye on on the ball, on the road, further down the road, keep everything on what's going to be happening, and don't look at things on where they are now, but where we could potentially be. And so I talk about that when I talk about General Motors in our vision, on our 000 again. Where are we trying to ultimately get to? And how can the governments help us achieve those goals and get to where we want to see it? That, we've got announcements where we are going to release 20 different types of fully electric vehicles by the year 2024, and we're building towards that. Now, COVID has slowed things down a little bit, but we still have, not only the 2 vehicles with Honda, and we've also announced a new electric truck. We've got a new electric crossover coming in through Cadillac, and we've got another electric vehicle through the Chevy Bolt platform that's going to be more of like a crossover SUV as well. But our goal is to get to a fully electric future, an autonomous future, but most importantly, a safe future. And so that's where we're trying to drive. And so to keep that big picture in mind is what we need to be doing, and what the federal government needs to be helping us out with, and the state and locals as well.
Rich, great points. Thank you for bringing all that to the forefront, and also for helping us drive towards a safer and cleaner future. As someone who's speaking to you from a smoke-filled zone, as I know Patty is as well, all of those things really matter to the quality of life of all of us, in a very big way. I'm going to turn to Q&A here in a moment, but before I do that, Kellen, I really wanted to talk with you about what communities really need, what communities can look to electricity for as a fuel for transportation, and sort of building on what Patty was saying about it being a journey. Really, at the end of the day, for all those that are listening, what is the first step for those that are listening?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would say it actually starts with the emissions kind of issue you brought up. We know communities that live along transportation corridors, for example, bear a lot of the burden of transportation emissions. And when you electrify transportation, you remove that point source of emissions, and that can have a really big impact. But bigger picture, we talk about the emissions impact. We're talking about climate, right? We're talking about carbon emissions, and we're really excited that on the electricity side, electric generation has gotten a lot cleaner. Since 2005, emissions have been reduced by about 33%. Our companies are on track to reduce it about 80% by 2050, 2005 levels. Only sector of the economy that's really seen that type of major greenhouse gas reduction. And so what we see as the benefit here is you can really leverage the progress being made on the power sector side to help also address the transportation emissions side. And when we marry those things together, we can have this nice integrated solution. But where it starts is a really important question. I think it really is around the ecosystem, and that kind of what we heard from Richard, from Patty. It takes everybody, right? It takes the electric companies supporting infrastructure. It takes the automakers engaged. It takes the technology providers. We love when cities also can lead by example and say, we're going to adopt vehicles in our own fleet. We're going to set targets for our trans agencies, for our various entities, fleets that we control. And it's really thinking that big picture. Of course, it's not just cars. It's commercial fleets. It's transit. It's ports. Anything that moves people or goods need to be part of this conversation to help we can reduce emissions and improve quality of life based, thinking through our transportation system.
Kellen, thanks for that. I will note that we have a lot of questions. We have a lot of great questions. So it's going to actually be hard for me to choose which ones to go with. But I want to turn to Q&A, and I want to start with a question that a number of people were asking about, and actually something that speaks to my heart, which is, urban cities or large cities really tend to lead the movement in both innovation and then also smart cities. And some questions around how small cities can join the movement, and how a small city can really pitch to private and public partners. So I'm gonna start, Patty, with you, and maybe hope that you can take that question for us.
Sure. So thank you. So in the spectrum footprint of cities across the country, we do have some really, really large cities. But to be honest with you, we have a very large population of cities that are under 100,000, under 50,000 even. And every city can be a smart city. Every city has initiatives. Every city has what they want to be able to, how they want to be able to make their city better for those who live, work, and play. And so we really, when we partner with them, I think it's important, as we've identified, all of us identified on this, to not go it alone. Definitely partner. And when you bring a partner like Spectrum in, we go out and we help you bring in those private partners, those partners that are in your city. We've got 2 initiatives that'll be kicking off before the end of the year, both with cities under 50,000 population. And both of those cities are leveraging the partnership that we're bringing to the table, as well as the commercial private companies that they have that are located in or near. And the reason is because everybody succeeds when a city becomes smart. The private industry succeeds, the tourism succeeds, your tax base hopefully gets better, your education, you want to bring more people in, more people want to live there rather than the city next door. So really identifying a place to start. Again, don't boil the ocean. Pick 1 or 2 initiatives, work with your partner ecosystem to determine where in the city you should make it successful. But we have found that small cities or large cities all can participate in the smart city initiatives.
Hey, thanks for that. And I know you'll have probably a lot of folks on the phone that appreciate that answer and sort of that idea of taking the first step, no matter what size your city is. Rich, there's a couple of questions around cars, so I'm going to do my best to sort of blend them all, and sort of the technology and the future of electric vehicles. So what I wanted to ask you is, in terms of a focus on fuel cell vehicles, why there isn't a focus on fuel cell vehicles, or if there is, if the carbon footprint is better than electric vehicles. And then sort of a part 2 to that, which is what are car companies, what is GM doing to really facilitate environmentally focused solutions to dispose of car batteries for electric vehicles? So hoping you can help us learn more about both of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And just because we're doing electrification in one sense, as far as batteries, the fuel cell side of things is still being manufactured in the defense world. We have been actually developing a fuel cell vehicle for the military for some time now, and we have been continuing to work on those projects. The problem with the fuel cells is they're extremely expensive right now, and so people have been focusing in more on the battery electrification because we've been able to really invest the money, bring the price down, and get those smaller as well. And so it's not to say that we're not doing fuel cells. It's just the focus ended up turning towards the battery electric and going in that direction, just for cost reasons and others as well too, and decisions in the marketplace. So that's something that we will probably continue to see in other areas. And it's going to be happening alongside of the batteries as well. But for right now, the focus has been more onto the battery side of things, and that's where at least GM's investment is on the on each person, the individual vehicles, or an individual's vehicle. As far as what we're doing with batteries that are have kind of cycled out of their lifetime, we are actually recycling all of our batteries, and so we are in the process to where it's a small known fact that people don't know much about is that 99% of a vehicle is recycled. And so we try to use as much material that can end up being recycled. So we're actually bringing it back and then using it for the next generation of vehicles. And so batteries is one area where we are recycling batteries. And so we have been looking at ways to do this in a more efficient and cleaner manner. But yeah, that's kind of where we are with these. And the batteries themselves have a life cycle of anywhere from about 10 to 12 years, depending on the usage. So that's basically generally the life cycle of a vehicle as well. That most people hold on to their cars from about 10 to 12 years, and so we kind of tried to match that with the batteries also. But yeah, that's where we are. I mean, we're trying to maintain as much, basically recycling as much as we possibly can of the vehicle, and thinking about that as we're producing the vehicles as well.
Rich, thanks for that. I think that really helps people helps us just understand how it all goes together and where things wind up, and things that are in progress. So I appreciate that. Kellen, there's a couple of questions that I wanted to sort of move over to you for. One around this concept of community-friendly transportation options in cities, small or large. How do we, in a smart city environment, really help build on ideas of community-friendly transportation versus a reliance on cars?
Yeah, it's a great question. As much as we love to talk about individually owned EVs, it kind of assumes that people have a garage, they can go and plug them in, right? We need to think about this much broadly. We've seen a lot of our companies help to fund infrastructure, for example, in multifamily dwellings, because we know that's a really different point, where if you don't have a parking spot in a garage, you don't need a place to be able to plug your car in. That's going to be a really important sector, and it's been challenging, but I think through some of the investments our companies are making, we're able to help overcome some of those barriers. But you're absolutely right. We need to think beyond just kind of individually owned electric vehicles. To the extent that car sharing, ride hailing can be electrified, we want to make sure we push in that direction as fast as possible. And I think Rich talked about a few of those partnerships. But we also need to be thinking about transit, right? I mean, I want to be careful to say electric transportation isn't the solution to everything, right? We need livable cities. We need walkable cities. We need bike infrastructure. We need more public transit to make these cities livable. But to the extent that we need power to transportation, we want to make sure that that is done clean and effectively and efficiently. And we think electricity is the best way to do that. But I think we're really happy when we partner with communities to think through those big solutions. And we get this a lot, right? It's not just, I don't need just another charging station for the individual EV driver. I need a holistic solution to move people cleanly around my city.
Kellen, thanks. Appreciate that. And I maybe building on that a little bit, a question for all of you, and maybe you can each comment on this from your perspective, is sort of this idea of how do we smarten cities without increasing disparities? and how do we help prioritize communities in need. I'd love to hear your perspective, each of you, your perspective. So maybe I'll start, Patty, with you.
Sure. So through the evolution of smart cities, there are more and more commercially available solutions, sensor technologies that you can deploy out in areas that can help the entire city, but certainly help areas that need additional Wi-Fi, for instance. So kiosks, digital kiosks are a perfect example. We have seen since COVID started, we have seen a tremendous increase in requests, RFPs, and the like for digital kiosks, and be able to put those out. You can enclose so many things, whether it be charging stations for devices or whether it puts small cells or Wi-Fi, just being able to deploy those throughout the city. There are more and more applications being uncovered or highlighted now, especially because of where we are in this day and age.
Thanks, Patty. Kellen, do you have a quick thought on that?
Yeah, I would just say, most of these programs that I've talked about are done through a stakeholder process that a regulatory commission approves, right? And what that does is actually create a great venue for lots of stakeholders to have input. And what we've seen through many of these examples is a clear focus on how do we make sure equitable distribution of access and benefits to these programs. And we've actually seen a great evolution over time of making sure where the investment is going is very carefully thought through. Which sectors, which use cases are actually going to benefit is a core part of a lot of these programs. So it's a great point and something we're keenly aware of.
Kellen, thank you. Rich, did you have a quick thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo a little bit of what both Patty and Kellen had said. Build out is going to be one of the big ones to make sure that those have that all communities have access to some type of network to where they're able to get onto whatever is necessary, whether it be through getting on a computer for education purposes or even just accessing an app in order to find out where there's an electric charging station somewhere, or even finding out where they can order an autonomous vehicle. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that we talk about with AVs is providing different communities with the access to mobility that they normally wouldn't have, or if they had to have, you have a senior who's having to walk 3-4 miles in order to get to a bus station or a metro station or having something like that. We talk about the first and last mile is a big one that can provide those solutions for people who are able to, get off of a subway and get into, let's say, a fleet of autonomous cars are sitting there. They can just walk up, hop in one, and that drives them that last mile, and it charges them an extra a couple dollars, and they get home, or they get home with all their groceries. They can get that done. And so it's different solutions like that we're looking at in order to provide access for mobility to all the communities that are around, not just certain ones that we talked about earlier, the difference between big and small cities. And so being able to provide those solutions for the small cities as well. And I will throw in one thing about that, about the smaller cities as well, too. Our largest connected vehicle pilot was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So you're talking about a small school that through the university was able to access a nationwide program that was viewed and utilized all across the nation for what could be the future as well. So it doesn't have to be a big city and it doesn't have to be a big community, but we're looking to access all communities and provide equal opportunity for all.
Thanks, Rich. And thanks to all of our audience members for those great questions. I'm going to go to lightning round closing thoughts. So I'd like to give you each 30 seconds to share with our audience sort of your parting thoughts. I'll start with Kellen.
Sure. I think I would just emphasize again the partnership opportunity. Every one of our companies has an external engagement or a community affairs person who is very attuned to what communities are looking for. So if you haven't yet reached out to your electric company partners and thought about them as a partner in your smart city objectives, particularly around electric transportation, I would encourage you to do so. We love when these are customer-driven initiatives that we can really point to a community solution that we're solving. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Patty.
Sure. So just to reiterate really what both Rich and Kaylin have said, smart cities is a journey. and it's certainly not one to be taken alone. We really strongly encourage you to partner, but partner with someone, as Kaylin just said, partner with someone who's going to be around, not someone who's just trying to sell you something and then leave. Spectrum really wants cities to be able to embrace the art of the possible, and those are the discussions we love having. It's a combination of the network, the partner ecosystem, sensors, and of course, data analytics that really comes together to deliver on the smart city initiatives for every city.
Thank you, Patty. Rich.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, the future is all about electrification, autonomous, and connectivity. And so where we're going in the future on that and how we are able to build those types of technologies and allow them to continue to develop and deploy them in the cities and wherever they are needed is going to be where we want to see things happening. But yeah, our big initiatives, like I said, it's a 0, 0, 0, and we're continuing to move forward on that. And that's where our future lies. And so we want to make sure that that everybody's on board and that everybody understands the benefits from all these technologies. So,
thank you, Rich. And I want to sincerely thank all of our panelists for this really thoughtful discussion. I learned a lot, and I really appreciate each of your perspectives. So I want to thank you all again for making the time in your busy schedules. And of course, a thank you to CHCI. Please keep tweeting about the conference at CHCI HHM20. We encourage you to attend sessions for the rest of the day and throughout the week. And now that you're registered, just a reminder that you can attend any session that you'd like. And you can find the session agendas on the website for the conference. Of course, if you know people that want to also participate but haven't yet signed up, you can certainly do that, and they can register at chcihhm.live. And then lastly, don't forget to join the virtual gala celebration on Friday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Again, just a warm thank you to all our panelists. And with that, I will wish everybody well and wish you all a safe rest of your week. Thank you all so much. Take care.
Thank you.